For years, Israel's Ethiopian Jewish community has complained over what they see as a pattern of racist violence by police against them. Those frustrations boiled over last night at a demonstration in Tel Aviv. It was called in response to the shooting death of a young Ethiopian-Israeli man by officers in disputed circumstances on January 18th in the city of Bat Yam.
And yesterday, after several hours of peaceful protest, activists clashed with police in violent confrontations. 11 were arrested, and police say 6 of their officers were lightly injured. Well, joining us in studio now is Ethiopian-Israeli activist Mazal Bisawer. Joins us in the studio. And Mazal, let's a little background here, because certainly our viewers abroad, especially in the U.S., are going to be familiar with this issue, the Black Lives Matter campaign in the U.S. Here in Israel, how severe a problem is it for Ethiopian Israelis, police violence?
Well, I think that we saw it a week ago with the tragic death of Yuda Biadga. I mean, this is how serious it is. It's practically dangerous for us to walk in the street. We feel afraid of police officers, and I don't think that in a democratic state this is a normal situation. The fact is that racism is something that is almost a taboo. No one talks about it, no one wants to listen, everyone would rather think that it's some kind of conspiracy theory in our minds, but when basically we are being discriminated systematically and brutalized for at least 30 years. Young people that were born and raised in Israel do not feel like this is their home. They cannot feel that way when they are being rejected by the institution and they are being rejected by the Israeli society and they are being beaten up by the streets.
Let's talk about those protests that we saw yesterday. We saw some of those images there, and as we mentioned, it started peaceful, it turned violent. Were you there? What was your experience of what happened there?
I was there. I was there yesterday from 2 to 8:30 p.m. I was there for 6 and a half, I think, almost hours. I can tell you that it was a very peaceful demonstration. We all felt like we have a responsibility, basically, after the last week, after the last few days, when you could see the police department interviewing in the mainstream media, talking about stereotyping us, a whole community of Black Ethiopian young people, Jews that live here in Israel, stereotyping us as brutal, as violent, as dangerous. We knew that we have an extra responsibility to not act that way, and you could feel it. Everyone was very peaceful. We had a large prayer. You had activists talking, and we basically have a very serious, well-defined demands.
So do you think that the point where it turned violent sort of distracted ultimately from the purpose and the message?
I think the fact that we are talking about it here right now, basically we are doing exactly what the police wanted us to do, okay? Out of 10 of thousands of people that were there, only 11 were arrested. This happened at the end of the protest at around 9 p.m., okay? And now you're sitting with me and we are talking about the violence that occurred last night. So we're not talking about 50% of Ethiopian families living in poverty. We're not talking about the fact that only 3% of cases against corrupt officers are being prosecuted. We are not talking about the full discrimination that we feel here every day.
So let's talk about that. Racism is, of course, not just about a public or just about institutions. It's endemic in all of that. So where do you feel like it needs to start? What's a message you would like to send and how to start to fix that problem?
I think that the first step is a step that no one ever took so far. The first step is to admit and say that there is something wrong here. The police department, instead of pointing the fingers at us and victimizing itself, okay, you have the chief of police saying that it's natural to suspect Black people.
I just want to ask you, though, are you in dialogue with the police? The police say there are incidents, we deal with those incidents, but it is not a pattern.
The problem is that we are in dialogue with the police, but the police want to sugarcoat it, okay? We have very certain demands. We want someone outside of the police to investigate the police corruption and the profiling, but instead, the chief of police or the minister say that he will tie up the strength with the community. I don't want it. I don't want your hug. I don't want you petting me in the cheek. What I want is your respect. I want to be able to feel safe in my own home, in my own streets. This is what I want.
Mazal, I want to ask you about the role played by we, the media, because every so often there is an extreme case, like the shooting that took place on the 18th, and it does make the media. But is it the greater issue of, for example, police, as you say, a pattern of discrimination against Ethiopian Israelis? Is that being covered sufficiently by the Israeli media?
No, and let me even add to that. The fact that police would rather take a large money over public relations. And when you have reporters that are not investigating, they are being satisfied with announcements of the police spokesperson, then you have the media cooperating with the police and delegitimize our struggle, demonize us, and basically using us as some kind of black sheep of this society.
So, Mazal, I want to ask you, you were saying, and I think you're very right about that the first step in fixing any problem is actually talking about it. So talk to us and tell the viewers about your personal experience. What do you encounter in a day, in a week, that you think that people need to know about?
I think that, first and foremost, people need to understand that this is maybe something that the Ethiopian community is suffering most. But this struggle, when I went yesterday, I fought not only for me and for my children or for my family, I fought for the whole Israeli society. I fought for me to have a life in a just society. I don't want to sit here and to victimize myself and talk about the times when people are using the N-word against me, or think that it's wonderful that I speak Hebrew without any accent. I think that this is pure ignorism, and I think that Israeli society should take responsibility over it, and they should have been there with us, watching us, knowing us, and also fight against discrimination for everyone, not just us.
An incredibly important issue, a great sort of last statement that this isn't even just about one group, and here we've been talking about this election season, a huge part of this, and something that we've heard alluded to is that it's not just about Israel and the world, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but a whole lot of very deep divisions and endemic problems, as you point to, in Israeli society that are an issue here and need to be fixed. Mazal Bisawer.